Hey everyone, and welcome to The Explainer. Today we're unpacking the incredibly aggressive transformation of a legacy German telecom into what is frankly becoming a futuristic tech powerhouse. You know, when most of us think of a traditional telecommunications company, we picture laying cables, maintaining cell towers, and just a generally slow, steady, maybe even slightly boring business model. But Deutsche Telekom is completely rewriting that script for 2026. They are walking this tightrope, balancing staggering financial returns on one side with absolute, cutting-edge, literal sci-fi technology on the other. It's a fascinating story, so let's get right into it.
Real quick before we jump in, just a reminder that this explainer is strictly for educational purposes based on publicly available data. We're just unpacking the source material here, so definitely do your own research and chat with a qualified financial advisor before you make any investments. Forward-looking statements are always based on current expectations, and you know how it goes, actual results can always differ.
All right, here is our roadmap for today. First, we'll cover the foundation, then we'll look at the shareholder reward, followed by the futuristic pivot, the reality check, and finally, risks and opportunities.
Okay, starting with Section 1, the foundation, a global telecom giant.
We really need to zoom out first and just appreciate the sheer scale of Deutsche Telekom today, because you kind of can't grasp their future moves without understanding their current massive footprint. Headquartered in Bonn, Germany, they are a total cornerstone of the DAX index, which is basically the Dow Jones of Germany, trading under the ticker DTE. But look, they are way more than just a European company. We're talking 192,000 employees worldwide and over 273 million global mobile subscribers. They are an absolute juggernaut across Europe and the US, heavily driven by their massively successful T-Mobile US subsidiary. This immense size perfectly sets the stage for their August 6, 2026 earnings report.
And that brings us to this massive Q2 revenue figure coming in at 29.9 billion euros. Now, the absolute key takeaway here is that this represents a 3.3% organic growth. If you follow the telecom sector, you know that growing top-line revenue organically, meaning without relying on exchange rate swings or buying up other companies, is notoriously difficult at this scale, but they are executing it flawlessly.
But revenue is just the top line. The real anchor here is their profitability, coming in at 11.8 billion euros in adjusted EBITDA AL for the second quarter. If you're newer to that specific metric, it's essentially the gold standard for measuring a telecom's core operating profitability. Seeing a 7.3% organic jump there, that is huge. It basically means they aren't just making more money, they're actually keeping a lot more of it. And you can literally see this financial strength cascading across the board for the first half of 2026. Organic service revenue is up nearly 4%. Organic EBITDA is up over 7%. And that momentum trickles all the way down to a 10.3% growth in adjusted earnings per share. This whole cascading effect of financial strength actually led the company to raise its full-year guidance for free cash flow to a towering 20 billion euros.
So it's no wonder CEO Tim Hodges is sounding pretty confident. He stated that all areas of the group are once again delivering impressive growth, and honestly, the hard data completely backs him up, including an 11.1% increase in adjusted net profit to 2.8 billion euros for the quarter. But hey, a company making billions is really only half the story for an investor, right? The other half is what they actually decide to do with all that cash.
Which brings us to Section 2, the shareholder reward, unlocking value.
Because Deutsche Telekom is not just sitting on this cash, they are deploying it, and they're doing it aggressively. The board expanded their 2026 share buyback program by up to an additional 3 billion euros. That brings the total for the year to a colossal 5 billion euros. Just to put that into perspective, that's roughly 5.77 billion US dollars being used to just sweep up their own stock off the open market.
So why go so heavy on buybacks right now? Well, it's not random. Management is systematically executing a four-step playbook here. They've explicitly stated they want to capitalize on recent stock volatility and take advantage of their historically low valuation. By doing this massive buyback, they actively reduce the total number of outstanding shares. And it's simple math, right? When you divide growing profits by fewer shares, the earnings per share has to rise, which directly boosts shareholder value. Unsurprisingly, the market absolutely loved this, and the stock surged by its most in 4 years on the news.
And they are wasting absolutely zero time executing this. The new tranche opened on August 10th, and within just 4 days, they snapped up over 1.6 million shares. They have until December 22nd to wrap this up, and the vast majority of these shares are going to be canceled entirely, just permanently removed from the market.
Okay, let's shift gears now.
Section 3, the futuristic pivot. AI, space, and quantum.
This is where we leave terrestrial finances behind and step into literal science fiction. They're proving they are far more than a legacy utility company. They're laying the actual groundwork for the next decade of communication. First up, AI. They premiered the Magenta AI call assistant. What makes this so wild is that they're embedding the artificial intelligence directly into their network infrastructure. It can translate, take notes, and summarize your live calls, completely eliminating the need for you to buy a specific expensive handset to do that heavy computing. They're scaling this across their whole IT model with their Mara architecture, and we're going to hear a lot more about this at their dedicated AI event coming up on October 5th, 2026.
And CEO Tim Hodges brings some serious swagger to these tech rollouts. He's making it crystal clear they intend to be European leaders in the AI space. He is positioning Deutsche Telekom not just as a dumb pipe carrying data, but as an active, intelligent processor of that data. They are straight up challenging the dominance of American and Asian tech giants in the AI race.
Now, if AI wasn't enough to impress you, wait for it. Quantum teleportation. Seriously. In January 2026, their T-Labs research division partnered with a company called Quanect to successfully transfer quantum information over 30 kilometers of live commercial fiber right in Berlin with 90% fidelity. This is absolutely massive. It proves that future, highly secure quantum services can actually run on today's existing city networks. It's not just a lab experiment anymore.
And they're not just conquering the ground. They're going after the sky, too. They dropped a cool 1 billion euros to acquire FiberHost and Inia to physically dominate underground fiber optics in Poland, while at the exact same time partnering with Elon Musk's Starlink to beam connectivity from space. By 2028, they expect future smartphones to connect directly to Starlink satellites. That would effectively eliminate mobile dead zones across Europe. The sheer ambition here is wild.
All right, bringing ourselves back down to earth, Section 4, the reality check. Wall Street's verdict. Because look, innovation is fantastic, but ultimately, the market always has the final say on valuation. And despite this incredibly strong operational performance we just talked about, the stock is traded at a stubborn discount. The mean average target price among analysts is 37 euros and 10 cents. Compared to recent closing prices, that implies a massive 30% upside. For a gigantic blue-chip telecom stock, a 30% potential upside is super rare. It highlights a pretty major disconnect between how the business is actually performing and what the current share price reflects.
And you can see that tension when you look at where the top minds on Wall Street currently stand. Out of 18 analysts, the vast majority signal is strong buy, including heavy hitters like JP Morgan and Citi. But we also have to look at the impartial evidence of caution here. Barclays and Deutsche Bank recently lowered their price targets, citing things like competitive dynamics and those very same satellite broadband threats, and Earth Group even downgraded the stock to a hold. So yes, it's a largely bullish picture, but one that is definitely laced with legitimate institutional caution.
Which leads us perfectly into Section 5, navigating the future, risks versus opportunities.
Let's synthesize all of this. It really is the ultimate balancing act that any potential investor has to weigh. When you put these forces side by side, it's a fascinating tug of war. On the left side, the risks. Traditional telecom anxieties like, what if Starlink decides to compete with them down the road instead of partnering? And what about that stubbornly low valuation history? But then, on the right side, the opportunities. You've got that highly attractive 30% upside, 5 billion euros in guaranteed buyback returns acting as a floor, and their undisputed market leadership in AI and quantum.
But honestly, the absolute biggest wild card in the whole deck is their 53% stake in T-Mobile US. T-Mobile's just an absolute growth engine right now. I mean, organic EBITDA grew a staggering 9.6% in the first half of 2026. But here's the catch. Deutsche Telekom is reportedly exploring a full-scale public merger to create a true transatlantic giant. This creates a massive dilemma. It holds incredible potential long-term value for sure, but the extreme short-term market uncertainty surrounding a deal of that magnitude is currently acting like a gravity well on the stock price. So, as you digest all of this and do your own research, this is the ultimate question you have to ask yourself. Deutsche Telekom is fundamentally sound. They are generating billions in free cash flow and richly rewarding their shareholders today. But do those massive terrestrial profits anchor their ambitions in the stars? Or does the uncertainty of historic mergers and space-age tech create just a bit too much turbulence? That is the multi-billion-euro puzzle of Deutsche Telekom. Thanks so much for exploring it with us today, and keep asking those big questions.